Hi there and welcome back. It's Jennifer McGuire. Today I wanted to share with you a fun way you can use stencils. Stencils are a very inexpensive tool to have in your craft room, and there are so very many ways you can use them. Today I have a few of them depending on what type of ink you may use. I will be using Distress Oxide inks, regular Distress inks, and regular dye inks, so I have several different technique options to share. I will be using the newest Hero Arts My Monthly Hero card kit. Now these Hero Arts card kits are definitely the best value of any card making kit out there. That's why I like to use them, and the products are very unique. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I am sharing a magic stencil technique with 3 different types of inks. The ink I'm going to start with is Distress Oxide ink. I'm using regular white cardstock here, and I am very heavily applying 3 colors of Distress Oxide ink. This is Broken China, Faded Jeans, and Cracked Pistachio. Now the nice thing about oxide inks is they blend effortlessly, unlike any ink out there. So you notice I put down that first blue color and I didn't blend it out. I didn't worry about it. But when I come in with the other colors, they blend together fine. You don't need to put in much effort. That's because these have a pigment property to them that allows them to blend like butter. They are amazing. You can blend with dye and pigment inks, but the nice thing about the oxide inks is they blend great and also have other fun properties that make them really fun to work with and do some really cool effects, such as adding water to it to get kind of a reaction, which you'll see in a moment. So here I have just blended colors together, the 3 different colors, kind of got this little mix going on here. You could do stripes, you could do whatever you want. Now I have a new Hero Arts stencil here from the kit. It's like this wave looking stencil. I love it. And I have a water mist bottle. Now I'm going to mist this maybe 5 or 6 times from about 2 feet above, maybe a few more times than that, until I get tiny little water droplets on it. So you can see the tiny water droplets there. You don't want big drops, just small ones. Now I'm going to pick this up and place it onto our inked background. I put nothing on the stencil but water. There's no ink, nothing else. Now I'm going to lay this gently onto our background, and then I'm coming in with a paper towel and pressing it down. The reason I put a paper towel on it is it absorbs anything that kind of oozes out and keeps a clean image. So anywhere that wet stencil touched, you get a little bit of a reaction. You get that white look. That is what Distress inks and oxide inks do. It just happens that oxide inks blend more effortlessly than regular Distress inks, and you get a brighter white look. So I thought I'd do one more example with Distress Oxide inks because it's definitely my favorite ink to do blending with. Here I'm kind of doing a blending from the top to the bottom. When I do that, I like to start with my top ink, my bottom ink, and then add the color ink in the middle. So that way I can make that color ink in the middle kind of overlap with what we have, and it makes the blending even faster. So I've come in with Broken China in the middle, and then I'm going to finish off by adding a little bit more Faded Jeans to one edge and a little of the Mint Cracked Pistachio to the other. Now I have another Hero Arts stencil here. It's got some nice waves. I misted that with water, and now I'm pressing on top of it with a dry cloth. And check it out. When you peel it away, you have that nice reaction that gives like a soft white, it almost looks velvety in person. So doing this technique with Distress Oxide inks is wonderful because it's easy to blend the inks and you get a really intense look. Now next I wanted to show you this technique with regular Distress inks. So these are the good old-fashioned Distress inks. This is a special dye ink that reacts well with water. So I'm using an ink blending tool in the same 3 shades of color, but again, this is regular Distress ink, not oxide ink. So I have Faded Jeans, Cracked Pistachio, and Broken China. Now you'll see this kind of goes on a little bit darker, it seems, and it does take more effort to blend, especially with the Broken China in the middle, since my ink pad needs re-inking very badly, but I can't find my re-inker since I've moved. But you can use Distress inks for this if you don't have the oxide. It just takes a tiny bit more effort to blend, but I definitely believe that Distress inks blend better than any other dye ink with an ink blending tool. So I'm doing again kind of the same stripe effect or that variation from the mint to the blue that we did with our last example. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I have a clean stencil that I'm misting with water to get tiny little droplets. Then I'm going to lay that wet stencil down, just lay it down gently. Then I'll put a cloth over it and press. So what will happen is that the water is touching anywhere the stencil is, and it's almost like we're stamping with the stencil in water, and you get a reaction because Distress inks react with water. So it's just like with the oxide inks. However, the oxide inks blend more effortlessly, and you get a little bit more intense reaction. Now there is a third ink I wanted to show you how to do a magic stencil technique with, but it's a little different. This is the Hero Arts Shadow Ink. This is a wonderful ink that I use for stamping quite often. And I took the Emerald ink pad, the Antigua ink pad, and pressed it direct to paper to make that white cardstock solid. Now I'm coming with an ink blending tool and adding a little navy ink just towards the bottom to give a bit of variation. So I've covered this completely with the Hero Arts Shadow Ink. Now this time, instead of using water on my stencil, I am taping the clean stencil on top. It's dry. And I'm using a clean ink blending tool and some Versamark ink and dabbing over this. And I'm pressing it very firmly. I'm just dabbing it because I want to get as much of that Versamark onto that inked surface that I can. Now the reason I'm doing this is that the Hero Arts Shadow Ink on paper reacts a little bit with Versamark. It just happens to do that. So that's why I'm using the Versamark instead of the water. You won't get much of an effect using water on this particular ink. Now you can try using Versamark with other dye inks. It works with some and not with others, but if you don't have any of the Distress or the Hero Arts Shadow Inks, you can give it a try. And check it out. At first you don't see anything, but when you heat set it, you get that same cool look that you do with the Distress inks, but with the Hero Arts Shadow Inks. So those are 3 different ways to kind of get a magic stencil technique using 3 different inks. So now that I have a few backgrounds created, I wanted to show you how I pulled these together into a card. I have this fun mermaid stamp set from the newest Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit. And by the way, the products that are in their monthly hero kit are only available in the kit. So once they're gone, they're gone. It's not like something that you can get later on. Now I'm stamping with Hero Arts Intense Black ink on Nina white cardstock. And I'm going to do some Copic coloring. I'm double stamping this in my Misty so I get a super dark image, and the Hero Arts Intense Black ink is definitely good for using with Copic markers. Now I'm not going to show much of my Copic marker coloring because that's not really what this video is about, and to be honest with you, I'm not that great at it, but I did want to share with you the colors that I use because I know many people ask. And even though I'm not the best at Copics, I still use them because it's a fast coloring method for me and I like it. So that's why I do it. So I am adding some brown to her hair, and I did, after making her hair very dark, I went in with 2 light markers, an E30 and the 0 colorless blender, and added highlights to kind of make a little variation in her hair. So you'll see me coming in with the lighter colors here, and that kind of softens the darker colors below. So if you color something that seems too dark to you, you can always lighten it by going on top with the softer color or with the colorless blender. It kind of gives that highlighted look. So if you're like me and looking to color fast and sometimes you struggle with it, give that a try too. Now the fun thing about coloring these mermaids is you can do any color combination you want. You can make her tail be any fun colors. You can make her hair be any fun colors. It's a really good excuse to try out new color combinations. However, I just went with color combinations that match nicely with the stencil background pieces that we just created. So I grabbed a bunch of my pre-stamped images and my markers, and I went to the baseball field and watched my son play and did lots of coloring. And now I'm back and it's time to die cut these. Check out these beautiful dies that come with the coordinating dies in the Hero Arts My Monthly card kit. So the coordinating dies are in it along with some other beautiful ones. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating dies to cut out all of the images that I colored. I'll be honest, I usually like to hand cut them so there isn't a white trim around it, but in this case, the white trim around it really makes it stand out against the colored background that we've created. So now I wanted to show you how I pulled these cards together. I created 2 different designs and a bunch of different examples. For the most of the cards, I decided to create kind of a window in the front of the card that shows that fun background that we created. So I am just going ahead and gluing this panel down to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding note card. This piece is about 4 1/4 by 3 inches tall. So now I have two white pieces that are cut to cover just the bottom and top of the card, but I'm putting a piece of double-sided white craft foam behind each of those. The reason I'm doing this is I wanted to kind of pop them up, but if I used foam tape, it might get squished in the mail. On this one, I did stamp a sentiment in black ink. I'll show you that sentiment a little bit later in this video. Now on the top, I did the same thing. I have a piece of white craft foam cut to be smaller than my little white cardstock strip there, and I'll put that behind it so that the top pops up too. And that way the front of the card is kind of popped up and that ocean stencil background is set back onto it. Now I'm adding my little mermaid to that window using some small pieces of foam tape. The reason I didn't use craft foam behind her is she's tiny, so I don't have to worry about her getting squished in the mail. So those tiny little pieces of foam tape should be fine. I'm also adding some Wink of Stella sheer shimmer to this, just to give it a little bit of shine, kind of catch the light. I think every mermaid should have a little sparkle to her. And then I have some white die cuts of seagrass that I cut from the dies that are also included in the Hero Arts My Monthly card kit. So I'm just kind of gluing those onto our little magic stencil backgrounds just for a little bit of accent. However, I'm not going to put much down because I don't want to cover up the technique that we did. So I added a cute little fish from that same stamp set that I colored and added a little bit of sparkle to. There's also a seahorse in the stamp set, but I didn't have room for him. Now the background that I used on this particular card was the one that we created with the Hero Arts Shadow inks and the Versamark ink. They all look similar to this point, but the Distress ink backgrounds look a little more velvety, but you can see this one's beautiful too. I added a few Hero Arts gems too to create a little bit of sparkle. Okay, so I wanted to show you a few more of the cards that I created. Many were the same, but this one on the left is a little bit different and I wanted to show you that. This is another Hero Arts stamp set. This one is not included in the kit. However, it is available to buy along with the kit. And there are some great sentiments that match up with the card kit images. But what I did is I took some of the small solid fish images from the set and I stamped them with some Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink to kind of make them look like they're in the background. The stenciled background piece that I have on this card is the one that was done with Distress Oxide inks and a water on the stencil. So you can see the beautiful look on that background there, and then the fun shadowy fish that we've stamped on top. Next, I wanted to show you a few cards with a little bit different design. For this one, I created a bigger piece using the Distress Oxide inks and the stencil technique with water. It's just a little bit bigger than the one I did before. Now I'm gluing this to the front of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. Now this panel that you see here is slightly smaller and it's from white cardstock, and I used a new Hero Arts die that kind of has an ocean scene. On the back of it, I'm putting some foam tape. I'm being generous because I really want this to pop up nicely from the background. I kept this very simple from here. I just added a mermaid fish and a sentiment. I felt like that die added such detail that I didn't need to have anything else. And because I liked that window die so much, I decided to create a few more cards using some of the fancy specialty papers included in the kit. So these are the 3 papers that are included in the kit, and I just thought they were beautiful. This one I'm actually going to use the back of it. I thought that looked kind of like an ocean. So I'm going to do the same design I just showed you, but put these instead of those stencil technique backgrounds behind it. I had less extra mermaids, so I thought I might as well put them to good use. Now I want to just show you a closer look at all the cards that I made using the magic stencil background technique, but also using those specialty papers. So here we have the example I showed you earlier, using Distress Oxide ink, and then stamping with the stencil with water, and then stamping some fish in the background. I also used a fun Just Keep Swimming sentiment from this color layering goldfish stamp set that Hero Arts came out with a while ago. I thought that sentiment worked great with that mermaid. And I also stamped it on a matching envelope. This one also features Distress ink, stamped with water and a stencil, but just a different mermaid. Now the next one features the Hero Arts Shadow inks, where I put that on the paper, put the stencil down, and added Versamark ink over it and heat set it. You get a similar look. It's a little more intense, and here I used the Hero Arts You're So Lovely stamp set for the sentiment. I thought it worked nicely with the mermaid scene. Next I have the window design card using that Hero Arts Ocean die. I also kept it very simple using a Hello There stamp. This is from the Hero Arts Everyday Messages stamp set. This has a lot of nice basic sentiments in a variety of fonts, so I really like it. And I thought the Hello There worked well with the mermaid and the little fish. Now the rest of the cards here use those specialty papers that are included in the Hero Arts My Monthly card kit. This one is like the textured, shimmery, pool-looking paper. I just put that behind the window die cut and added the same stamped elements on the front. Gives you a different look, and it took no time at all since I used one of the specialty papers. Now using that die, you can put any paper you want behind there. This is another of the specialty papers, and then the third card using that too. So think about it, you can use this card design and put any type of background there, something maybe you created or something you have in your stash. I really had fun creating these cards. I hope the video is helpful to you. I link the products all below in my YouTube description, but I always recommend going to my blog because there's a lot more information there. In the middle are 2 more videos that are related that you might like. I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you come back soon and have a great week.